Okay, we'll call the county board to order at 6:03. Receipt of evidence and opinion on proper notice.
The County Board of Supervisors May 19th regular business meeting notice and agenda was distributed to the supervisors and media contacts via email or mail, published electronically on the county website at 7:44 p.m. on Friday, May 8th, 2020, and was also posted in the Government Center building in 2 places. The agenda was also published in the county's legal paper the week of May 11th, 2020, the paper published on 5/14/2020. The amended agenda was posted in the Government Center, posted on the county website, and copies of such notice of meeting distributed to the supervisors and media via
Linda
email
has left the meeting.
Friday, May 15th, 2020.
Corporation Council, does this constitute, in your opinion, the proper notice?
Yes, it does.
Roll call.
Brett Olson. Doug Rowdy.
Here.
Steve Warndall.
Here.
Chris Nelson.
Here.
Tracy LeBlanc. Here. Brian Masters.
Present.
Michael Pritchard.
Here. By phone.
Okay. Jim Edgel.
Here.
Tim O'Connell.
Here.
Amy Middleton. Here. Jay Luke.
Here.
Fran Duncanson. Here. Russ Arkin. John Bonaparte.
Here.
And Joe Demley.
Here.
We have 14 and 15 here.
John Bonaparte on the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mr. Chair, our Sheriff Rock will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Do we notice that Supervisor Olson has appeared in person? Number 5, I'm going to let Malia address that this evening because this is a new item from our Rules of Order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there was some...
Your license?
Yes, you guys hear me okay?
No, it's not.
All right. So there was some discussion at a previous meeting about those members that are part of some of the taxing jurisdictions that are within Polk County, specifically as it relates to the property tax resolution. So I would make a recommendation that anyone who is employed by any of the taxing jurisdictions contemplate 19.59 sub 1C, specifically prohibit public officials, local public officials, from taking any official action affecting a matter in which that official is either a member of, either that person personally, immediate family, or an organization with which the official is associated, and it has a substantial financial interest, the organization. So those taxing jurisdictions, because it was delayed, some of the second round of making those taxing jurisdictions whole, I would recommend that they ask the chair for permission to abstain. When it comes to those who are sitting on boards of those taxing jurisdictions, there is a caveat where my recommendation is not as strong because a membership as a member of that body politic does not qualify as an organization. So my advice today is that only those people that are employed by or have family members employed by those taxing jurisdictions, not family members, just those employed by those taxing jurisdictions.
I would offer any questions to clarify that. We go ahead and just have Joe, Supervisor Demley.
I've talked to, because I represent 2 townships, Alden, part of Alden, and all of Farmington. And I talked to supervisors there. And I feel to myself that it's a conflict of interest for me because I'm representing them. And
Corporation Council.
So I understand where you're coming from, but that would then prohibit everyone on the board from taking action, which would be an absurd result. So I understand your request. I would suggest that the chair decline if you ask for permission to abstain.
Yeah, so I would agree, Joe. I talked to Corporation Council about this. That's what we're elected to do, is to help make these decisions. And as long as you're not an employee of one of those organizations, you're an elected official. They are not your employer.
what if my supervisors there that I represent tells me one way or the other which to vote?
Well, then you can vote on that when we get to the vote, but right now you will be obligated to vote on that. Any other questions? Supervisor Lou?
Wrong button. So you're saying that a representative of another entity, another governmental entity, should abstain from this? I'm the town chairman in one of the towns.
No, because you are a member of the body politic, it does not qualify as an organization under the statute. So if you're on a town board, you may still vote on this. If you're employed by another taxing jurisdiction in this county, that's where I would suggest you request for abstain.
Thank you, I had intended to.
Supervisor Masters, would you explain why you were going to probably have to abstain tonight? Maybe that might make it clear.
Well, I'm employed by the town
Clerk, can you use your mic?
I'm employed by the town of Balsam Lake as the town clerk. I'm not elected. I'm an appointed official for the town of Balsam Lake, so I am employed, and I would probably have to abstain from that vote tonight.
Because you're an employee.
You're an employee.
They hired you as an employee, you're
Correct.
not elected.
Right.
I just want to make sure that was
Thank you.
clear. Any other questions, Fran?
Yeah, I'm Fran Duncanson. I am elected to represent the city of Amite as my district. I'm employed by the village of Osceola as a village clerk. I've done a little bit of research into this issue because I have seen it interpreted differently than how it's been interpreted tonight. But I think that in the interest of public perception, that I will abstain.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. So no further discussions on number 6 item, approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move to present as presented.
Oh, I make a motion.
I'm going to recognize Supervisor Masters.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the agenda with a motion to strike number 13 and 14 and the closed session at the end of the meeting because those two items have not been undertaken by the General Government Committee or the Executive Committee for personal and motions. Thank you.
So do we get a second on that? Second by Supervisor O'Connell. Is there a discussion about us striking those and making this change to the agenda? Supervisor Rowdy?
Just for clarification on number 14, what was the reason?
14.
Yeah. You said 13, 14.
I will allow you to address Corporation Council on that.
Yeah, thanks.
So both for 13 and 14, nothing is right for this board to make a decision on at this point. We're still in the conversation phase with both of those entities, so there's nothing to ask this board to do. So it should be placed on your next agenda.
So we had a first and a second. Does it have something to do with the first and the second? Supervisor Masters?
executive committee, discussion number 14. We have a meeting progress in any negotiations that can be corporation council explains that. Thank you.
So we have a first and a second to amend the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Saying aye. All opposed? Same sign. Carried. Matters offered for adoption on the consent agenda. A, consideration corrections to the published meetings, April 21st, 2020. Can we do all these at one time? B, the meeting May 1st and same item on May 5th. Can we get a motion to do all of 7 at one time? Supervisor Warndall made the first. Joe Demling seconded. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Same. Carried. Number 8, public comments. We are doing public comments tonight. I'm not exactly sure how that process works. Chad, are there any people upstairs for public comment?
No, sir, none.
Okay, so we have no one in the building to make public comment. All right, I hear no public comment. Yeah, so I'd like to clarify this then, Corporation Counsel. So the public comment is only going to be taken if you attend the building and you go upstairs, correct?
I would defer to the tech folks to determine whether or not it would be feasible to take public comment from those that are appearing by phone or WebEx. I don't know if we're at that point yet, but the intention was to open up the upstairs conference room and allow public comment to be WebEx in from that location. So I don't know about the external.
Supervisor O'Connell? Chad? I would look to the board to see how they would want to handle that. Is there any other discussion? Are we going to allow people to try to go through the WebEx to make public comment? They can actually log in a comment? Supervisor Middleton?
Yeah, I think if we can do that, put a comment in, if people type one in, I think I would be up for seeing if we can work the WebEx for input. I would like to encourage input, and I love that people don't necessarily have to come here, and people who don't want to come can chat. So if it doesn't work, we can assess it, but I think let's give it a shot and see how the public likes it and how we like it, and if it can work.
And one thing I did tell Supervisor Pritchard is I wouldn't forget about you. So do you have any comments, Supervisor Pritchard, about public comment? I can't see your hand up. So
I'm all for them.
Okay, I heard you. All right, well then let's, I don't hear any other discussion of not doing it. So I'm going to go ahead and allow public comment. We'll try it. If it doesn't work, we're just going to end it real quick. But let's give the first, if there's anyone out there that would like to make public comment, state your name, where you live, and let us know what you have. 3 minutes. So Chad will unmute and we'll try to do this. How about we go one at a time? Does anyone out there have public comment? Okay, yes? Okay, second call for public comment. Do we have a notice there on public comment already? Okay, public comment is over. County Board Chair report. So the only report I have is, since it's all kind of new, is I met with our executive. We had our first executive meeting this month, and we were talking about things and what the role of the executive committee will do. The only other thing I am kind of trying to do is once a week I'm reaching out to every township and every village and mayor and asking them how can we improve our relationships with the county. So I will kind of update the executive committee on those comments, but that's kind of what my role is. I would ask, under supervisor report from outside committee, I would like to first run through those supervisors that sit on the executive team first to give us any update. And I would recognize John Bonaprise first. Do you have anything as first vice chair that you've been working on this month?
I don't.
Can you use your mic, John?
We had our Human Services meeting last Tuesday, and Brian Kazmarski gave an up-to-date report as of 10 o'clock that day. And we've had one of the, I didn't write the numbers down, I did, but I don't have them with me. There were 6 cases as of 10 o'clock that had tested positive in the past. There wasn't any new cases. There's been no deaths. The health department, all our nursing homes and all our senior citizens report from our nursing home at Golden Age. They had the new boiler installed. That is something we've been working on for at least 15 years. It was that far past its lifeline, and boiler was over, I believe, $100,000. The nursing home, in case there's some new people, is built in the early 50s, and the last 8 years, I believe, it's finished in the black since we have our new coordinator there. And they've done a lot of work. I believe all the windows have been replaced, the roof has been replaced. It's really done a fantastic job of supporting itself and our senior citizens. That's the one that's owned by the county. And all our senior homes, all our senior nursing homes, there's no reported cases.
Supervisor O'Connell, anything?
Just that we had the forestry, we finished up some of that, and we're setting dates for the trail. And then the forestry will have an open house, and the CAFO stuff, so we're busy at that yet.
Supervisor Luke?
I didn't have any outside meetings at all. The only one we had was our public protection highway.
You know when we actually do CCJC, they have our...
Yeah, that one, I have one coming up, this next week.
This Thursday, yeah. Okay. Any other supervisors that want to discuss? Any Supervisor Agile?
Are we working? I'd like to follow up on John with our health meeting last week. And Brian also mentioned that in the county only 700 people have been checked. And if there's 5,000 of us, that's not a very good representation. And it just kind of bothers me because if 6 positives, say in 1,000, you take 6 times 45, what are we talking? There could possibly be 250 cases. Positive cases. Could be. So I don't know, you can get checked 3 places, St. Croix Hospital, Osceola, and Amory. Supposedly it's free, according to Brian. Right, John?
I believe that's correct. Supervisor Johnson?
We give it to everyone, we can come back.
Yes.
Supervisor Johnson?
Yes, I just, in John's report, he was reporting that there were no deaths, but actually I saw a release from our public health department to their residents a couple months ago.
Any other supervisors have any outside committee report? All right.
I can go with you.
You guys go ahead. You got another one you want to, Jim?
Well, I'm on housing, Polk County housing. And due to illness and virus, we have not met for 3 months, but we are going to meet Thursday.
John, do you want to follow up?
Well, yeah, I thought, that he didn't have a complete, I thought that was that week that those 700 were tested. Yeah. But I believe there is more than that, but whatever. I had a question with, Chairman, Archad on, 13 and 14, the ones that we did,
I don't think we should go there.
Okay.
Yeah. First off, agenda's been approved. Okay, administrators report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will give you, I think, first off, an update on many of the COVID-19 events and financial aspects of it here. Let me just say, you are correct in that there are 6 cases still, which is a relatively low number. 3 have recovered. Yesterday, there was 1 death of a resident who died in a Minnesota hospital. We believe everything indicates that this person contracted it at work in Minnesota. Older gentleman with multiple underlying conditions. So there has been a press release that went out this afternoon. So we certainly express our sympathy to their family. It's a good reminder that this is a virus that is still here and that we need to be aware of it and practice good, safe habits. I will say that as our staff meets on a daily basis quite often, we are very impressed with Polk County overall in the practices that many people, businesses, and families are doing. And we can always do better, right? But we do, and we continue to stress good fundamental practices of spatial distancing, cleaning, and so on. Now, with the Supreme Court ruling that businesses can open, they can open. What's important and what this county has done is a good job of communicating with the public and with businesses, again, to still follow the guidelines that are laid out. And I think you'll notice when you go by and you see signs on businesses that say, we are practicing COVID-19 best practices, or we are spacing people. That's a good sign, because businesses that do that will get customers, and businesses that don't may run the risk of a customer saying, I don't know, if it looks crowded in there. So we are going to rely to a large extent on the good common sense of the Polk County residents. Regarding that, even though the Supreme Court has ruled, I'm happy to tell you about what the Polk County staff, along with the Polk County EDC, chambers of commerce, and community clubs throughout the county have worked together to create a business recovery plan. And in that plan, it stresses to businesses how they can ensure safety as much as possible. It is also linked with the WEDC's best practices, and it has specific steps for every type of business to follow. So we are doing what we can to encourage good fundamental practices that will enable us to keep our numbers low with the virus. Financial implications. I think for the last few months you guys are interested in that, and let me just say there are some serious financial implications. One, added expenses have totaled so far around $90,000 extra dollars. Now, we anticipate a large portion of that being eligible for reimbursement. maybe 87% of it or so. The real hit is coming in revenue shortfalls. For example, it's been estimated that Polk County sales tax will be reduced because of the lack of sales by up to $540,000. So that's a hit on our budget right there. In addition, Golden Age Manor, they're doing a terrific job in keeping people safe, but their census count is down. Some folks are pulling people out for safety reasons. They're scared. Also hospitals, because they are empty, they're keeping some of their short-term patients in the hospital, and they're not being referred to Golden Age Manor. All that's going to reduce their revenues this year as well. The jail, who does a great job of taking prisoners not only from Polk County, but other jails use us and they pay us to let prisoners stay in our jail. Those are down because there are fewer arrests happening. And then finally, the property tax situation. We don't know what's going to happen with property taxes. Are people going to be able to pay them, or we have more defaults than normal? The bottom line, and our Director of General Government has done a good job of estimating. Right now, we're projecting a shortfall of anywhere between $900,000 to $1.1 million. I can assure you, every day we look at ways to offset that. We have implemented a hiring freeze, except in actual critical instances. We are reducing expenses throughout the county organization. Everybody's looking for ways to reduce expenses, like delaying some contracts and purchases, and cutting back expenses. We are making staffing adjustments. We are doing things that would, I think the taxpayer would say is the right thing to do. And we're also working very hard every day to identify new funding revenues or additional revenues where we can. With that, we hope to offset much of that shortfall that is anticipated. So moving on to another topic, in the next 30 to 60 days, you're going to be hearing a lot from us, the staff, about goal setting and priority setting. And so starting this month, after this meeting, you'll be contacted one-on-one. We'll be doing some interviews, some surveying to find out what's important to you. And then and we're actually going to have a series of meetings going forward, more than usual, where we can talk about priorities of this group, priorities for the county, and how we might address them in the coming year. I'll also say that I'm excited about this process because instead of just putting dots on what's important to you, we're going to look at what you've said over the past several years. We're going to set priorities, and then we're going to start putting together a plan that will enable you to not only say what's important for this year, but over the remainder of this year, we'll be talking about what's important for the next decade so that we can start thinking about long-term planning, budgetary requirements, staffing requirements, and so on. So we're actually going to go a little bit deeper, and I think it's going to be something that you'll like and will enable us to do more productive things consistently. Finally, it has been mentioned earlier about CJCC, and I will say this, after an organizational change there, I'm happy to announce that Don Wortham, who is with UW Extension, has agreed to be the interim coordinator. And he has been meeting with Mr. Roberts and myself, and we're discussing very specific objectives and goals for that organization. And we're rebooting, building on some of the things that we've accomplished, but we're really going to focus on things that we think we can get done. I think you're going to see a substantial difference over the rest of this year of what that organization can do. That's all I have.
Are there any questions for the administrator's report that this would be the right time to ask anything? Supervisor Masters?
I want to thank Administrator Netherland for his work that he's done regarding the CV-19 issues. I've reviewed most of Terry Hauser's stuff, who is the director of the EDC, and I want to thank him, too, for the great job he's done in trying to get this all going and so forth with the, following of the rules or, making people safe from this CV-19 issue virus. And again, I just want to thank him and you and him and Vincent for doing such a great job of getting that going.
Thank you, and I would say more importantly is besides Terry, is each community's chamber, the community groups, the individuals, and the staff. And I can say this unabashedly, this staff that is here is doing great work, and I mean every day. And so I just want to give a hats off to my staff because the stuff they're doing is unbelievable.
And I would also second that. Now that being on the chair, you know, you get to see kind of the back room and some of the stuff going on. And I can tell you what, I'm very proud of the leadership of this county. And we got some solid people running it. So, you want to go into 11 conversations with Polk?
Yes. Part of my responsibility is appointing citizen members to organizations. And in our rules of order, we included an opportunity for the executive committee to make recommendations when they feel it's appropriate. But I'm happy that I still get to make appointments based on you know, the statutory authority. 3 appointments on the Health and Human Services Committee I have not changed. Their 2-year periods are up, but I've asked them to step back onto that committee. That is Sabrina Madah, Bill Oliva, and Dr. Arnie Lagas. I think most of you know these folks. They've done great work, and at personal sacrifice in some cases, they continue to do things for us, and happy that they are back. The only other appointment at this time is with the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. As you know, 2 of your members, Tracy LeBlanc and Joe Demling, are the board members on that committee. This is a group that's charged with planning for physical, social, and economic development of the region. We've been fortunate to have William Johnson on that committee for the last, we think, 8 years or so, give or take a few, and he's been very active and very supportive. One of the things I've been striving to do is to get more people engaged in this government, to add different perspectives, and so I have appointed Tom Magnifici, with your approval, to take that position. Tom Magnifici has a stellar record in different areas. First, he's retired as an Army Ranger, infantry captain. He has been on several boards, both here and in Illinois. He has been a board supervisor. He currently serves on the board of Polk County Historical Society. He's operated his own supper club. He ran a successful wine import business. He's owned a landscape design company, and he currently operates Waterworks Irrigation LLC, which designs, builds, and services water services. Tom is a very assertive, he is a very energetic and a very positive person who will take this, I think, use his business background, which I think is a need in this county. The economic development aspect of it, the understanding of businesses, and so I ask that we approve that appointment. But I also want to thank William Johnson for the tremendous work he has done, and I am very happy that he will continue on with his role as the tourism board president. So he's active in our county and will remain so.
So do we need to, so I need a motion to confirm the administrator's appointments. Motion by Masters. We have a second. Second by Supervisor Bonaprise. Any discussion? Supervisor Demling.
William has been essential on there. He's vice chair, and he goes to the regional committees, and to me, he's going to be a tremendous loss if we lose him. And I like Tom and everything, but I think he's got enough on his board. So I am all in favor of just leaving William on there myself.
I will, just one comment. We did run this to the executive committee, and so we had a discussion and then looked at their letter. So just so you know, we did vet this, and we did have a discussion at executive committee about, Administrator Netherlands' appointment. Any other questions? Supervisor Bonprice?
I would, if you kind of get a move for approval of these appointments.
We have one other question by Supervisor Johnson.
I was just curious, the people who are getting appointed, can you talk to them ahead of time? And then, for example, William, have you talked to him about not being appointed?
I have not called William about not being appointed. I had a discussion with him a couple of weeks ago when he expressed his interest, as I have with Tom.
So he doesn't have any advance knowledge then, or he won't find out about this until after that?
Unfortunately, I was going to call him this evening, and I was in a meeting, and I don't have his phone number, but I will call him first thing. He may be listening.
Okay, we have a first, Supervisor Rowdy. We had a first and a second, right?
Oh, this discussion.
Oh, discussion, yeah.
So I'm just a follow-up to Joe. And what's the process here in that the administrator makes the appointment by state statute?
I'll let
So
Corporation Counsel answer that question.
It is subject to the confirmation of the full county board, so he makes the appointment pending confirmation from the body. And so given that it sounds like only the three Human Services Board there's no issues, maybe bifurcating those and having a motion and a second for those, just to get those out of the way and then coming back to the one that everybody's talking about.
We've already had a first and a second. I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Carried. Proposed, we're on number 12, proposed resolutions ordinance for adoption or enactment. We got on recommendation from general government. The general government chair is Supervisor Arcan. Would you speak to, do we need a first before we discuss it, I suppose? Do we have a
Motion to bring to the floor.
Okay, Supervisor Masters makes a motion. Do we have a second? Supervisor Warndall on resolution 4-20. Russ, would you, no, that's second amendment, but it still went through general. You know, maybe before we talk about it, we would recognize Sheriff on this issue first. Would you please talk to us, Sheriff?
Thank you. Sheriff Polk here. Supervisor Masters wanted this several months ago, brought this resolution forward, asked if I would support this resolution, and I absolutely overwhelmingly support this resolution. In the last couple months, COVID-19 has kind of consumed the entire nation. But I would just remind everybody prior to that, for the last couple of years, there has been an all-out attack on the honest, law-abiding citizens' gun rights in this nation. And this has been a trend that's gone around Wisconsin with this resolution that Mr. Masters brought forward. So, as the sheriff, I submitted a letter to the committees. I believe it went to the general government and also public safety and highway. And on those committees of the one, we had a room full of people in support of this resolution. And for me as a sheriff, it's an honor to take people's constitutional rights and be a guardian of those rights. So this sends a message to lawmakers that the county strongly supports a person's fundamental right to keep and bear arms. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. I will still recognize the chairman of the committee if he wants to allow Supervisor Masters to talk on the resolution. I'd be fine with that.
yeah, I'll defer to Supervisor Masters.
Supervisor Masters,
Thank you.
authored the resolution.
I did author the resolution with the help of Corporation Counsel and Sheriff Polk. I want to thank them for their work helping me do this. I've had a lot of emails, phone calls, etc. regarding this matter. We're people are worried about the government taking away our rights. They bring up, it's a fundamental right. It's under the Second Amendment of the Constitution. Yeah, it may be a feel-good amendment, but again, like the CB amendment was, this is something that we need to do. We need to protect our rights as citizens of the United States, that we have a right to bear arms. This starts with our citizens and protecting their rights. There always is going to be mental health issues. Like people say, people kill people, guns don't kill people. They may be determined that some people don't think like that, but I do. I know there's a lot of mental health issues out there, so those need to be taken into consideration. Laws are focused to on people that own them and not people who like to use them in a sport like hunting, target shooting, what do you call it? Clay pigeons, the gun clubs that have trap shoot. Trap shooting. Thank you. And there's a lot of issues that come up with this, and our government and our Congress is thinking about, doing a lot of laws that could affect our Second Amendment right. It's just a start. Even the red flag laws is just a start. They talk about these red flag laws. Well, that has to do with a lot under mental health issues. It shouldn't be a way to come and take our rights away to protect ourselves and bear arms. I don't really have anything else other than, I don't know who would enforce these red flag laws. It looks like the state. I've read a lot of H.R. 717 that has come out from the Congress. There's a lot of ambiguous and lengthy proposed laws regarding this that, if you read it, like I did this afternoon, I'm like, wow. I mean, it's all over the place. No one can even follow it almost. But it's just like these CD19 protocols, it changes one day and changes the next day. But with these red flag laws, you never know what's going to happen. It's kind of the same thing I think is going to happen with that. So I support this amendment. I know there's 1,000 people out there that have emailed me and been part of this discussion with myself, and I would just recommend moving this forward to our board tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? Supervisor Rowdy?
Mr. Chairman, this came out of Public Safety and Highway, and I'll let our chairman, Mr. Supervisor Luke, speak to that if he will, so I don't,
Supervisor Luke, do you have any comments? How did it come out of your committee?
It came out without any recommendation. One of the big issues was the broadness of this particular resolution. I've been supporting the Constitution of the United States. First time I swore to that was in 1955, and I don't know how many times I've done it since. And I certainly believe in the Second Amendment of that Constitution. And however, there's a few things that I've never read in the Constitution. The body armor and things like that. I'm not sure why there are issues. I would assume there's something that's being potentially attacked by people that don't support or are worried about gun rights. If this was simply to show our total support for the Second Amendment, I'd certainly concur wholeheartedly. However, with all of the additions to it, I think it's a political statement, and not that I disagree with some of these things, but I think, speaking for the calls and emails that I received, they wanted to totally not support it, and I argued that issue on the fact that I can't not support the Second Amendment. However, I cannot support this resolution with all of the other issues involved in it.
Do you have, Supervisor Luke, do you have any recommendations, any amendment that you want to move
part or no?
No, I'm gonna, let it go as it is,
The way it's been drafted.
right.
Supervisor Agile?
Are we going? Yeah. I've got a little problem with it. First of all, I have guns. I have a 22, I have a couple of shotguns, and I have a carbine. I don't remember the last time I fired them. But the problem I have is the problem. How are we doing? He says no.
Yes,
Green flashing. Okay, we'll have to go with it. The problem I have with it is sanctuary. And I looked that up in the dictionary, and it's a really complicated explanation of what it is. 90% of the explanation is its religion. Now, how you put guns and religion together, I do not know. Thank you.
Supervisor Demling?
Okay, now, if this gets passed, the state and federal government, if they pass something against this, it don't make any difference. We have to abide by it anyhow, right?
I would direct that question to Corporation Counsel.
So because this resolution addresses the sheriff's constitutional authority, and he's already sworn an oath to the Constitution, if he felt like one of those laws that came down was unconstitutional, he would have a moral obligation to not enforce that unconstitutional law. Now, the other question would be whether or not other law enforcement agencies within the same jurisdiction, view that law the same way. But really, this resolution is simply underscoring the constitutional authority that already resides within the office of sheriff.
Thank you.
So, is this what you constitute a go-good resolution, Corporation Counsel?
I don't think that's a legal opinion or conclusion, but correct. It's a statement of policy and expressing what already exists within the office of sheriff, and I think it's making a case.
We're not making a new law. Supervisor Bonifay?
Yeah, I would thank Chairman Root for his discussion on that, because it was in our committee, but I would also, being it wasn't with adoption from the general government, can I ask Chairman Arcand if there was negative that we should be aware of, or the word outcome?
Supervisor Arcand, do you have any comments?
Our committee was unanimous in favor of it, and we had probably 30 or 35 people that came to support it. Everyone that came supported it. I've gotten a couple calls on it. One that supported it but not as written, and then the other ones supporting it. So our committee was unanimous to support.
Thank you for that report.
Supervisor Rowdy?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, not to be negative against our committee, but it didn't come out of there unanimous that we didn't have some support, because I support this resolution, and I strongly support it, and I've had my grandson here since Sunday, and we're probably between 400 and 500 rounds that have been shot, and I haven't shot one. So I just want people to know that I support this resolution strongly.
Supervisor Olson?
For show plate, you don't get a mic either, apparently. But, yeah, I support it 100%. It's a shame to think that somebody who legally owns guns could be arrested for having a gun in their house, which there's no shortage of them in mine. At some point down the road, when we can't seem to keep the true criminals off the street today. But, if you're a law-abiding citizen who would happen to own a gun, I'm sure they could find a cell for you somewhere, even though they can't a true criminal.
Are there any other questions or amendments on this resolution?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Pritchard.
Richard? I was not on the General Government Committee at the time that it was considering this. I have a general aversion to the feel-good resolutions, and including this one. And I think the courts are the ones that ultimately interpret what the Second Amendment requires or doesn't require, and I'm willing to go by that. I haven't read in the local papers about any law-abiding citizens who've been locked up recently for gun violations, but maybe I'm not carefully reading the newspapers. I don't think there's a problem that I'm aware of, and I just want to be on record of why I'm voting against the resolution.
Chairman, I call for the question. Roll call.
So we got a roll call vote requested.
Okay, roll call vote. So this is for, adoption of resolution 420, okay.
Before you vote, so the audio is on. All right, Lancaster.
Yes.
That was a no?
No. That was a no.
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 Yeah.
Any no? No. Steve Luke?
No.
Fran Hutchinson? No. Russ Arkan?
Yes.
John Bonaparte?
Yes.
Joe Semmeling?
Yes.
Brad Olson?
Yes.
Doug Brody?
Yes.
Steve Mornhill?
Yes.
Tracy LeBlanc?
Yes. Oh, and Chairman Nelson?
Thank you, Gal.
Yes, okay. So we have 5 noes and 10 yeses.
So that resolution is adopted. Resolution 6-20 in support of mandatory minimum sentences and 3 strikes law in Wisconsin. I would ask that our first vice chair sit in on this since I sponsored that resolution. Supervisor Bonaparte, could you change seats? Before we change the seats? Okay. We have a motion by Supervisor Masters. Do we have a second? Second by O'Connell. Open for discussion.
Anyone raise their hand for discussion on the motion? Supervisor Nelson.
Yeah, so this resolution, my name's Donnie, but Supervisor Olson and I had a long discussion about some things here. This started a number of months ago. We've had lots of public concerns. Our newspapers every single week shows the meth epidemic that we have in Polk County. We met with the district attorney, we met with corporation counsel, and we've been discussing this on what message can we send to our officials that make these laws that seems to hamstring our system here in Polk County. And the sheriffs
and the deputies are out there in our local municipality, police departments are dealing with mental health issues, they're dealing with drug addicts, and they're dealing with criminals. Criminals use the meth drug that they're addicted to as the reason they are committing crime. And I think I'm, as much as anyone, I'm getting sick and tired of seeing the same families and the same pictures in the paper and the same people committing crimes in our community. And it's just like this revolving door. And this was our feel-good resolution that kind of tells everybody, and I think it sends a message to even the people that work for our county that we want the criminals in our county held accountable. This is not about not offering support. This resolution is not about, not having more programs for the people that need them. That's not what this resolution is. So I just wanted to kind of give you the backdrop without spending a lot of time on rehashing the last 4 years of being on the county board on what I've seen. And I know I actually we asked Corporation Council to kind of draft this with some kind of support from the district attorney's office and the sheriff's office. I don't know if Supervisor Olson would like to speak to this, but I'd certainly ask if the sheriff has any comments too. I would certainly like to hear him share if that would be allowed.
Sheriff Polk, would you like to address this, please?
Okay, yes. I recall back in February I came to one of the board meetings and I talked. My intention that night was to pay honor and respect to a lady who passed away in her home down by Amory. She was left to die alone in a bathroom. The care of her son who did nothing for her. I would compare it to what you would see, something like you would see in a Holocaust picture. It was terrible conditions. And I came to that meeting to pay honor to that lady. The person who was responsible for that got 9 months in our county jail with Huber. This was what was deemed to be the worst case of elder abuse ever seen in our county. And, my intention wasn't to point fingers. My intentions were to say, we have a system that's broken. If that's the best we can do, then we have a citizen who's left to die with no dignity. And the best we can do for the person responsible is 9 months in a jail cell with work release. I think the whole system is overwhelmed. The justice system is never set up to handle this much volume. We can go out on a daily basis and make meth cases and find criminals, and we do that. And it isn't one quick fix. I respect that this system is bogged down. I think we could use 2 more judges in Polk County. We could certainly use, a lot of additional resources. But I think the point was taken by a lot of people that we got to do something. We can't allow something like that to go unnoticed. That we got to, try to take some action, some positive steps forward in justice reform. And I think this county's made a tremendous effort through the creation of the CJCC and to try some alternative means. But in the meantime, for the justice system to work, there has to be an accountability piece to that. And I think we lack that sometimes. I don't think our society, for whatever reason, we don't have that accountability at times. And that's disheartening. It's hard for the morale of my deputies to go out there day in, day out, knowing that this is a revolving door. And the few times we do find justice, they're very unique cases. So, it can be done. I've watched a sex offender get sentenced to 45 years in prison in this county. So I know it can be done. So I respect the fact that this board has taken it upon themselves to try to create some change, and I certainly support this resolution.
Mr. Roberts, you've been in law enforcement all your life. Would you care to make a comment?
Yeah, as the chairman mentioned, you know, I spent about 25 years of my life in law enforcement. Part of it in the South, part of it up here. I have seen exactly what the sheriff's expressing everywhere. You know, Alabama at one point had a 3 strikes law, and then they started to roll it back because of prison overcrowding and things like that. When I retired from Alabama, I think that, you know, the running joke, and it wasn't a joke, it was a fact, is you did 7 years for murder because you got out so quickly. So, and that's after the 3 strikes were rolled back. I was in the federal system as a narcotics task force officer. The federal system has very strict rules and regulations regarding sentencing. You can argue both sides on that. I investigated narcotics a huge part of my career, but in the federal system, when people offend, they do their time, they don't get out early with 85% service time, and they're not back on the streets. In Illinois, they moved to, well, I was the chief of police, they moved, even before New York got all the headlines, Illinois moved to recognizant bonds unless you committed a violent crime against a person. No matter what the level of felony was, unless it was a violent against a person, you signed yourself out of jail the next day after you were jailed. So, you know, from my personal perspective, from my experience perspective, I think the sheriff's analysis is dead on. Justice can be done as it is, but what is the harm in giving the courts more ability to dispense justice? You know, I trust in our courts. I trust in the justice system. I have faith in law enforcement and the criminal justice system. Why not provide them the tools that they need to do their job? That's strictly me speaking personally.
Any other comments, Supervisor Wilson? You have the floor.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, much longer than the 4 years that I've been on this board. I mean, you talk to people, they're just sick and tired of the system. It is, like Chad Roberts said, it's in today, out tomorrow. There's no consequences. And, you know, state and federal officials will talk about it's too costly to incarcerate. What's the cost not to incarcerate? And you open up the paper on almost a weekly basis and see someone in Polk County who has been arrested for their 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th offense or more for dealing drugs. My question is, what is the cost for what we are doing? The cost is enormous because every time those people hit the street, they're affecting some other young person, getting them hooked on drugs, making the system worse and worse and worse. I know one thing, somebody goes away, once they're locked up, they're not selling drugs on the street anymore.
Thanks for your comment, Supervisor Wilson. Supervisor Demling?
I would vote for this one, but the question I have is for court counsel. Can we vote this through and the judges abide by it?
Court counsel.
This is a lobbying resolution asking the state to make changes to sentencing guidelines. So it doesn't ask the judges to do anything in particular right now. It clearly would send a particular message for them as far as their viewpoint on the exercise of their discretion when they're through sentencing. But this is truly a lobbying resolution and a promise to commit funds to provide for the cost for increased staff and jail and that kind of stuff. So it's lobbying primarily and then a promise to pay if the things provided at the state level.
Thank you. The other thing I have too is I just found out that one of the boys up at the campground, him and his mom was in that car accident in Dresser. That the guy that hit him was 2 blocks from home, and he was on big time drugs.
I don't know if we should.
Well, I'm just saying.
Talk about incident.
It's not no names. Okay.
Is there any more comments regarding this Ex-Sheriff Luke. I have a question to,
Mr. Chair?
you'll be next, Mr. Pritchard.
Thank you.
Have we had any input from, the judges on this? We got sheriff, DA, and we get in.
Sure, am I allowed to answer that? The comment I want to make in the answer to that is, I don't know just when it was, but Judge Anderson and, the district attorney, we had them all with it at our committee meeting. And what surprised me was Judge Anderson says that he is judged by a higher judge, that they review all his cases, and that seems to be the problem that they were aware of, that the judges in our county are being judged by. Someone he mentioned. Does that help answer your question?
Not necessarily. I'm wondering if we've had any input in this resolution, not their performance on the bench and what their sentencing may be or may not be. I'm wondering if we've had any input from our judge in reference to this.
I mentioned Judge Worrell about this, and I reviewed it, correct?
Yeah, me too, Supervisor Luke. Yeah, no, we did not specifically go knock on the judge's door and say, hey, what do you think? I think the idea was I didn't want to pull them into this. I didn't think to get the judge's opinion about this necessarily was our job as supervisors, because it's a lobbying issue that goes above our local judges' decisions. So,
correct. I know.
I didn't ask the judges. We discussed it with the DA and we discussed it with the sheriff only.
And I'd hope that any efforts in this along these lines would potentially help us in our shortage of judgeships in this county that we've been remiss in for months and months and months, and in fact years. However, I'm kind of concerned about I know there's been some drastic stories about the three-strike law. They're having problems with it and the ambiguity of them. I'm wondering if we know what we're doing when we're asking for a consideration of the three-strike position.
I'd like to respond to that, Chair.
I want to recognize Supervisor Pritchard. Supervisor Pritchard, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, and I actually wanted to speak to the now therefore three strikes language, lines 31 to 34. And if we were to pursue that, I would feel much more comfortable if it was worded as being for violent criminal felonies, that a third felony would, and I think California probably ends up being a life sentence after the third strike, and you hear some discussion about how that works in practice. I guess looking at the multiple drug offenses, that could be dealt with a minimum sentence, but for the three strike, if it's talking about a long-term incarceration, I would be amenable to putting in an amendment that related that to felony convictions for violent crimes.
Question on 31 and 34 you mentioned. Are you calling for an amendment on one of those lines?
I think if it's going to die for lack of an amendment, I won't bother. But it would be on lines 33 and 34, would be required, mandatory incarceration for, violent criminal felony convictions after a defendant has already had 2 violent criminal felony convictions within the 10 years prior, or I'm fine without the 10 years for that matter.
I would second his amendment to insert the word violent into the line 33.
And part of that argument was that people can hope that they get insurance for loss of money and one thing and another, but if there's a violent, someone gets raped, killed, maimed, whatever, that's irreplaceable.
Where are you inserting the word violent?
Well, there would be 2 times. It's felony. It's violent. On line 33, incarceration for violent criminal felony convictions.
Okay, violent felony.
Felony.
Criminal is already there. So you would put violent.
Well, it could be, that's redundant. It says violent felony convictions. And then in the next line 34 again, where after 2 it would be violent felony convictions.
Okay, so we insert that twice, violent and then criminal and then felon. We're adding those 2 words.
Be amenable to taking the 2 words out also.
Supervisor Nelson?
Yeah, I don't think that changes the intent of our resolution. Our resolution is not a law, it's a lobbying. And I guess I just want to address with Supervisor Luke that, we're not making the laws here. And I think if this sends a message to the state, I'm pretty sure all of our judges and the people that actually know how to do this and the attorneys of our state are the ones that are going to draft this. So, I think Supervisor Pritchard's additions to this, I do second them.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Supervisor Middleton?
I have a question. Did the CJC work on this?
Pardon?
What role did the CJC play in this? Are they in on developing this language?
Yeah, we have a motion and a second, and this would be discussion on the motion. If somebody wants to comment, I don't think this is part of that. Supervisor Wilson.
So, by adding violent, are we taking, my question is I don't want to take drugs out of it. That's my concern. And are we, once we insert the word violent, are we taking drugs out?
Right.
That's a good point.
I agree. I don't think that removes what the second whereas clause is line 7 through 9. I think it's very clear what the intention of this resolution is.
Do you know if the CJC committee has seen this as a comment?
I'll put in the order. Yeah, let's run a motion.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, I'll call for a voice vote. All in favor of inserting on line 33 the words, violence, okay, that would be inserted on line 33 and 34. All in favor of that amendment, first of all? Yeah.
Aye.
Opposed? Contrary? Aye. Any more discussion on the amendment that passed? Or We will vote on the resolution as presented.
Mr. Chair, could I, loop back on that piece on the CJCC role, just to get an answer? Does anybody know the role they played in this?
Supervisor Nelson.
They did not play a role in this. I don't believe they were actively meeting at the time. We did not consult with CCJC as a body. We talked to specific people that are part of that organization, but not as a body.
Okay, call the question. Further discussion on the resolution. All in favor of the resolution say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carries. Supervisor Nelson. Chairman Nelson. Thank you, God.
Resolution 1420, resolution regarding Act 185 to defer July property tax payments to October 20th. Do we have a motion? Supervisor Olson, do we have a second? Supervisor Warndall. This ran through general government. I'd ask Supervisor Arcan to, how did our committee deal with this?
The General Government Committee sent it here with no recommendation. And resolution, I think, came from the administrator, so I would feel better if he spoke to it than me trying to.
Administrator Neville?
Thank you. About a month ago, a little over a month ago, the Wisconsin legislature enacted Wisconsin Act 185. And the governor signed it the next day, and as the title indicates, it allows a county to waive interest and penalties on 2020 property tax installment payments due and payable after April 1st until October 1st of 2020. Because this was enacted by the state and because it was publicized, I took it upon, the staff, myself, to say we should at least review this in the general government, which we did. And now I've asked our Director of General Government, Chad Roberts, as well as our Treasurer, Amanda Nissen, who prepared a presentation to kind of explain the nuts and bolts of it.
Tammy's going to pull up a PowerPoint for me real quick. Or Chad, rather, I'm sorry. I forgot Tammy. Went upstairs. All right. So what this resolution does is adopt Act 185, which what the state did with 185 is opened it up to the counties to pass this resolution. If the county passes this resolution, then it opens up to the municipalities within the counties to pass a like resolution for their parcels. Next slide, Jeff. Go back one. Alright. So what the resolution does, if you pass it delays property tax payments for the parcels that have payments due July 31st, 2020. It delays property tax payments for the county parcels that are due on July 31st, 2020. It does not, the county, by passing this resolution, does not delay payments for municipal parcels. Those payments are only delayed if the municipalities adopt the same resolution or alike. What it does do for all municipalities, whether they adopt a like resolution or not, is it moves the full settlement date with the municipalities for those payments, which is normally August 20th, no later than August 20th, to no later than September 20th. The collections through July 31st, 2020 will still be settled with the municipalities on August 20th, but any collections on or after July 31st will not be settled with the municipalities till September 20th.
So those part-in payments for those parcels affected, any payments on that property tax made July 31st or later, the county will not settle with the municipalities for an extension of 30 days. It forbids the assessment of tax penalties and late fees on property taxes due July 31st, so it gives taxpayers a grace period from July 31st to October 1st for late fees and penalty interest on tax amounts due for that July 31st payment only. It allows municipalities to pass a like resolution, meaning that if you don't pass it, then the municipalities do not have the option either way. The county has to open the gateway in order for the municipalities within the county to pass a like resolution. It creates a short-term cash shortage for the county, and by that I mean the municipalities would be delayed in their final settlement from August 20th to September 20th, but the county would carry that cash settlement. We'd pay out the municipalities on the 20th of September out of our cash reserves, and we would not replenish that balance until we collect the property tax in October. So it creates that. What the resolution does not do is provide forgiveness for any penalties or interest on parcels that were delinquent prior to July 31st. It does not provide an extension for the July 31st payment for parcels that are delinquent on their January payments. So if a parcel is delinquent already in the year, it doesn't get this extension for the July payment. It does not change the due dates for tax on parcels within the municipalities. Like I said, they have to pass a like resolution. And it does not cause municipalities to forego tax settlements beyond September 20th. The municipalities, like I said, will get a pro rata settlement on August 20th for all taxes collected up to July 31st, and then they'll get a settlement in full for all taxes due on July 31st and after on September 20th. So the burden will be for the municipalities from August 20th to September 20th to supplement what they normally would have been settled during that time, to live without that settlement till September 20th. But then the county has to carry the cost of that cash from September 20th till, end of October when we collect payments due. Amanda, do you want to add anything to this?
No. The part that I'd like to make clear is that even if no municipalities pass the resolution saying they want the parcels in their municipalities to go forward with this, once the county board passes it, the settlement is automatically broken into two parts for every municipality in the county, including the schools, the lake districts, WITC.
Chad, next slide. What I did here is broke up by municipality, and these are county, town, and village/city taxes, school taxes that are collected by each town in the county. And so here you have the total in millions that these payments or that this deferral could potentially affect. Now keep in mind, it won't necessarily equal that because a lot of people, a lot of escrow companies make payments prior to July 31st. But if everybody who had a parcel in these towns elected to make no payment for their July due payment until July 31st or after, this would be the amount by town throughout the county. These are by town and by village and by city, the number of parcels affected. I just thought you guys would want to see that broken down into that. Is there any questions on that one?
Supervisor Manners?
You said, it's only 30 days, you're saying from August to September. You said the end of October. When was the payments actually due? October 1st?
They become due October 1st, but they would have the month of October.
Okay.
Right.
So how are you going to prorate? Is that what you said? From August to September?
No. So the township, or the villages, the cities, and the towns, just like every year, and Amanda step in here if I get this right, they get settled in full. The county carries the weight of the tax in arrear.
So the county we will settle in full with the municipalities on September 20th. So there's no, the villages, cities, and towns are only prorated between August 20th and September 20th.
Well, I want to follow up with that, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure. We'll come back.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, yeah, I do. Now, how do you look at, the county budget? Now, we're going to get to that in a minute. That's the next slide, so I do, I kind of anticipated that, so, you wouldn't. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Ponce. I'll comment after that. As of 5/14, and Amanda will update you with the numbers that I put in the up here, based on what I did general government, because I wanted the information to be consistent. This is a chart of counties that have adopted, have elected not to adopt, and are yet undecided on the resolution. So, yes, they have adopted the resolution. No, they have decided not to adopt the resolution. And as of 5/14, there was 37 that were undecided. Now, Amanda does have an updated number if you want to give that, Amanda.
Right, yes is 6, no is 38, and undecided I think is 28.
As far as locality, Burnett County did not pass it out of committee, and then St. Clair County was taking it in committee tonight, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Grand County did pass it, at the request of the city of Rice Lake, which had an April 30th due date, so they had to pass it right away to make that due date. So they had a multi-due date municipality.
Supervisor Bonfire?
I had the opportunity to discuss this with our treasurer and find out some of the intricate questions, and it'd be a lot of work out of your office, from what I understood. And it sure doesn't cause a lot of, division. I think not all municipalities are overwhelmingly, if you take that those up, there's not a big agreement, more disagreement than anything. Yeah, and then we put our reserves. Why would we go into the county reserves to pay off the township?
Get ready to pass this resolution.
Thank you.
I was hoping maybe this last slide would answer some of those questions, and I can expound on questions if you have. So I laid out considerations for the county board on both sides. What it does, a potential purpose provides additional time for taxpayers to settle property taxes during the economic downturn. And then there's no cost such as penalty to convert investments to cash for the county to float the settlement until taxes are collected. I'll touch on that a little more on the cons. So the cons, it creates a 30-day delay for settlement with municipalities. Some municipalities may not have the reserves to cover that 30-day approach. They also, if municipalities collect income off those tax settlements, then of course they're losing that interest income for that 30-day period because it's not in their accounts. It's a loss of approximately $15,000 in potential interest and penalty assessments for the county. That's very hard to come up with a solid number on, but I'm pretty confident in the number that Amanda came up. You want to explain how you got your number?
Basically, I looked at what was paid on time last year and what was paid late. And if the parcels that were paid late last year were no longer considered delinquent, these are ones that were paid in August, September, and October of last year, then the interest that we would have gotten in those months would have been lower by approximately $15,000. The thing that it also does is it, once you go late, currently all interest goes back to February 1st. This changes that, so these parcels would never have interest that goes back to February, but stay in October. So a year down the road, you're still losing a potential small income stream because you're losing out on 7 months of interest.
Yep. It does create somewhat of an additional workload on the treasurer and finance because we still have to collect the taxes for the municipalities that do not pass this. So there's still be tax collections coming in. We're going to have to do the pro rata payments to the municipalities. The taxes collected up until the 31st, and then we'll have to do the second settlement on September 20th for the taxes collected after. So there's an additional level of work there for accounting and for finance and treasurer.
Having said that, my job is to tell you the pros and cons. Can we do it? Yes, we can do the work. I'm just letting you know there is some additional work. And it could potentially create confusion for property owners that own property both in the county and in a municipality that are taxed. Because if their county tax deadline is October 1st, but their municipal property's tax deadline is July 31st, it could create that potential for conflict or confusion. They could think, oh, none of my property taxes due October 1st, and then they go delinquent on their municipal property that hasn't had the resolution. Next slide. So, yes, ma'am.
I have a question backing up to the last slide. When you say that they're prorated payments, are they going to be prorated on the percentage of total tax collections for Polk County as a whole? Or are they going to be prorated on the tax collections to each individual village, city, and town?
They're pro rata in the sense that you will only be paid pro rata for the taxes collected for your municipality up into July 31st. The other part of that pro rata is July 31st to October 1st. Whatever that balance not paid is, would be pro rata till September 20th. It has nothing to do with the county overall. It's taxes collected and numbered by municipality.
I think what you're asking specifically is so if we collect 1/3 of the total taxes, do you get 1/3, but if we collect only 1/4 of Osceola and 2/3 of another municipality, does it go that way? And the DOL has not released their recommendations at this point. The Wisconsin Treasurers Association has asked for that clarification so that every county in the state is doing it the same way for all the municipalities. So we don't know. I personally hope that it would go by the total of the county, because I think it would get very confusing to try to figure out how much, especially for the schools, which would be multiple municipalities, how much of the school's portion would be if you collected 1/3 of Osceola and 2/3 of Alden. It would be very hard to figure out the difference in each of those settlements.
And that comes to the additional workload for Treasury and Finance. That's where one of those pieces would be. Yes, sir.
Does Act 185 specify the September 20th payout?
Yes. So, Section 105, subsection 25, and I know that because I've read it like a million times, it says that if you pass this resolution, the county shall move the settlement date till September 20th. Not may, it shall move it.
And there was talk with the WCA, which is the Wisconsin Counties Association, about asking the legislature to go to October 1st, and they specifically did state they wanted September 20th in there. So they felt that there was not a chance that it could be moved to coincide with the end of collection.
Supervisor Middleton?
Thank you. I have a question. Maybe this is a Amanda question. I'm curious, so in this August, September month, that's really the ramp-up time when schools are bringing on new staff, they're bringing in their temporaries and their part-times, and some of the people that are kind of in that front end, loaded in the front end of the school year. What do the schools think about this? Sounds kind of complicated. What are they saying?
They're curious as to, they want to know as soon as Polk County either passes it or does not pass it, so that they can plan. Because they do look forward to that settlement in August every year. And I don't expect this year to be any different. But a couple of them did ask me in April to let them know either way.
The one last piece is probably important to know as far as the county's exposure cash-wise, the maximum exposure, assuming nobody paid property tax early for the July payment, and everybody waited to July 31st so they could get the delay, the maximum exposure would be around $18 million, I think it's 18.9, and we have roughly $18 million in cash that we wouldn't have to liquidate. So, once again, my job is not policy, my job is can we do it or not. If you elect to do it, yes, we can do it.
But a municipality has to pass it also. We pass it, but the town of Brown Falls still has to pass it, or the
taxes are due.
Correct. Your taxes are due July 31st, but that's when your settlements become prorated between August 20th and September 20th.
Even if the town of Clontarf does not pass a resolution, if the board passes it, automatically the settlements are in two portions for every municipality in the county.
Supervisor, Craig, your question?
Yeah, I'm sure think it would be simple if they would just forgive the interest rate until a certain date on the late taxes. But I sure can't support this with all the burden it puts on the county with that.
This is just time for questions to staff, where, we can, once we're done with questions, then I think we can take the resolution. Any other questions for staff? Supervisor O'Connell?
What will this do to the tax deed plan also, Rick? That's what it's all.
This only affects the 2019 taxes that were due January and July 2020. Any prior year taxes are not at all affected by this. Any taxes that were due in January and not paid are already considered delinquent and are also not affected by this resolution. So it's only those parcels that were already paid. The first half or more was paid in January.
Now, I do want to add one thing on that, Supervisor O'Connell. The courts have suspended share sales and foreclosure proceedings and all that by state act. Until that's lifted, none of those can proceed anywhere.
Supervisor Angel?
What is the idea of this resolution? Now, I understand that part of it's to do with the virus. Is that it? I mean, we're so used to having to pay in January and July. Why all of a sudden move it up move it back 3 months, I guess? I don't understand what good it is.
I can't get in the mind of a legislature reading the whereas clauses in the state law. The idea is it provides additional time to the taxpayers during the economic downturn. So I think the idea of it is, do you provide taxpayers essentially a 90-day extension on their property tax due for the July payment?
Any other questions for Jack and Linda? All right, I thank you guys very much, and you're going to stick around because I'm going to pop back up.
So we have a first and a second. Is there any additional debate? Supervisor.
Richard?
Yeah, Supervisor Pritchard, I'll call on you as soon as we get through everybody else. Supervisor Duncanson, you seem to have a lot of knowledge in this and in general government. You gave a pretty thorough discussion. I appreciate that. Would you?
Sure. Okay, here it is. It's on. Okay. I think that the intent of this is good. I think that you want to be able to help taxpayers who maybe got laid off from their jobs or have been furloughed or lost their jobs. And I think it's good that you want to help businesses that were forced to close, that because of that may have a hard time coming up with the money. And it may very well be that municipalities across Polk County, towns or cities or villages, if you have a lot of cash on hand, if you have a high cash reserve and you have a lot of money in the bank and maybe you don't have a lot of expenses, this isn't going to be very painful for you to wait 30 days to get your full tax settlement. But if you do provide a lot of services, if you have a $975,000 debt service payment due between August 20th and September 20th, this is quite painful. I think this, the intent is good. I think it throws the baby out with the dishwater, so to speak, that it's going to cause more harm than good, and that it is going to put municipalities in a very, very tough spot. They might have to lay staff off. They might have to reduce services. they may not be able to do some of the things in the utilities that they need to do. If they have debt, say they've already awarded a bid for a contract for a big road project or a street project, well, and they have pay requests that by that contract legally they have to pay within that 30-day time frame, and they don't have any money or enough money to meet those obligations because of this change in the settlement date, that's very problematic. I also think we all should be a good neighbor to each other, and we should be a good neighbor to the school districts. I know we don't represent them per se, but I think that we should really kind of be united that this is going to cause pain to more than it's going to help. And for that, of course, I already mentioned I will not be voting on it, but that is my position on it.
Thank you. Supervisor Arcan?
I would question anyone that had a conflict of interest who is not voting to even be participating in the debate, because debate can definitely sway votes. And I would think debate would be almost more critical than the vote.
So Supervisor Masters, you're not recognized. That question would go to Corporation Counsel.
So, if you're reading the statute, it's taking the official action that is prohibited. So, although I would agree that it might be more influential to participate in debate, I do not believe it rises to the level of an obligation not to debate.
Supervisor Demling?
I've had quite a few discussions with people in my district and stuff, and just like up there's pros and cons. And one of the cons is that, okay, you delay this payment on the taxes, and all of a sudden, here comes your next year's taxes. It comes up in one heck of a hurry. So if you say you can't pay for them now, how are you going to pay for them in just a few months after this delay? The other thing is that there's a lot of people hurting. You know, I understand it. I talked to several of them that said that they would like it, but do what you got to do.
Thank you. So one question I would have back to Supervisor Arcan, and would this be proper, is that we would see a show of hands from the supervisors before they want to debate an issue that they think they have a conflict with, is to at least acknowledge so the supervisors in the room know that you're not going to be voting on a resolution. That might at least cover Supervisor Arcan's concern on that. So I would like to show a hand of who will not be voting on this resolution. So it's Supervisor LeBlanc, Supervisor Masters, Supervisor Duncanson. Did I get Olson? And Supervisor Olson, you won't be voting?
No, I have a question.
Okay. Sure, Supervisor Olson.
So have we reached out to villages, cities, towns, to ask if they will be okay financially if we pass this, if they pass this, have we heard back from any of them?
Would you ask the question to Chad? Chad, thank the administrator, but I would ask Chad if you would comment on that.
So both St. Clair Falls and Osceola have expressed, the administrators have expressed this would create a hardship. Amory, the administrator, expressed that they had the reserves to get through. Now whether they're going to pass a resolution, I don't know, but we reached out to those three. Events of direction, I reached out to those three. I did limit my scope to those three events of direction. We have not reached out to every single one.
Does anyone else, staff have, any communications with anyone? for,
In the information from the Wisconsin Counties Association, their biggest concern as far as cash flow was for school districts that rely upon that August 20 settlement. As far as those would be the likely entities that would have a difficult time.
Supervisor,
I got some legislatures on local as well as our county treasurer. And the legislature really accepts no responsibility on this. It's a political year in answer to Jim's question, and the county's got all the responsibility, really.
Supervisor Masters, your question.
I don't have a question. I just have a statement that I talked to my town board, and they were against this. They didn't see any resolve in doing this, any dragging on any later than it already is. Most townships have the reserve. Some don't, as you heard, and I don't think that a 90-day extension is going to hurt anyone around here.
Any other questions on this? Supervisor Edgell?
I wonder if we should hold off on this a little while and let Chad do a little more field work. Maybe with school administrators and more villages.
Is that a possibility?
Well, of course, if Vince direction too, I'll reach out to whoever. There is a timeline on this, in that the resolution would have to be enacted prior to July 1st before the payment due, plus you would have to give the municipalities time, if they chose to adopt, for them to adopt this resolution in order for the tax payment to be avoided.
Amanda, do you have a follow-up to that?
There you go.
It would have to be done by July 31st, which is the due date. We do send out reminder notices from our office the first week of July, last week of June, so it'd be good to know prior to that. But the main thing is giving the municipalities and the town boards only meet once a month, most of them, time for them to meet, discuss it, and have a chance to pass a resolution if it passes. One thing that someone asked about touching base with other municipalities, there is one more, the Village of Turtle Lake. They are in Barron County and Polk County. They have 21 parcels in Polk County that would be affected by this if it was to pass. They did pass it for their portion in Barron County, which is many more than 21. So they are one municipality who also has reached out to us. But like I said, they have 21 parcels, so it's not a giant amount.
Thank you.
So, I don't see any other questions. Supervisor Pritchard, do you have a follow-up? You're representing the, and I didn't know, are you going to abstain from this vote? And do you have any follow-up from your city?
What possible thing do I have here? I live in St. Croix Falls.
Supervisor Pritchard, would you first let us know whether you're going to abstain from voting on this or not? Oh, just because you live there, you don't work there. Oh, gotcha. I got confused there.
Yeah, I was puzzled a bit, but
I just trying to throw you off on purpose.
I think it's been said in the prior discussion, but when I mentioned I sat through this discussion in the General Government Committee, we had a long discussion. My personal conclusion was that there are a number of problems with it, that the problems probably potentially exceed the possible benefits, and a lot of confusion and maybe administrative hassle to get it all in place. And so I speak against the resolution.
All right. So, call for the question. Roll call has been called for.
Okay, so Michael Pritchard.
No.
Jim Edgell. Kim O'Connell.
No.
Amy Middleton. No. Jay Luke.
No.
Russ Arcand.
Yes.
John Bonaparte. Joe Demmeling,
No.
Brad Olson,
Yes.
Doug Rhodey, Steve Warndall, and Chairman Nelson?
No.
Right. Oh, yep, and we had, abstaining, we had, Tracy LeBlanc, Brian Masters, and Fran Duncanson. So we had a total of 2 yeses and 10 noes.
So the resolution has been defeated. Are we going into closed session? So all the closed session has been stricken. So supervisor announcements is where each supervisor would have the ability. So I'm going to go around the room here. Supervisor Demling.
Don't have any meetings until Thursday.
Supervisor Bonaprise.
No, I covered.
Warndall. I do want to mention Warndall was appointed to the Fair Board, correct? Is that the Fair Board? So he is our county representative now. Supervisor Middleton?
No, nothing here.
LeBlanc? Edgel? Rowdy? O'Connell? Arcan? Duncanson? And Olson. Wow. And Supervisor Pritchard, I don't want to forget about you. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn? Second, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.